Welcome to day 3 of what me and my dog consume after 5 years on a carnivore diet. So if you're new to this channel, my name's Jacob, and Apex is all about humans and dogs and the foods that bonded us, which of course is meat. I put a link in the description below where you can check out the first video. In that video, I kind of explain more in depth about what this series is going to be about. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you the cost, and I'm going to go over the nutritional information. So if this is something that resonates with you and you want to follow along as we consume carnivore foods and try to optimize the diet, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the future videos in this series. Alright, so as always, I've got 32 ounces of water. I'm going to consume this. This is water from a well, an underground aquifer. I like drinking unfiltered water straight from the earth. Today's my day off. I'm not working out, so I'm basically just drinking my water. I'm hydrating. And then within about 30 minutes to an hour after that, I'm going to make and consume my first meal. So if you watch day 1 and day 2, you'll see that my fat to protein ratio has been 70-30 both days. I didn't plan those meals out at all. I just grabbed food out, and that's exactly what I'm doing throughout this whole series until we've established a baseline of what I'm eating every day. And then we're going to work on trying to optimize the diet, because there are going to be some holes in nutrition, and I do want to address that because I want to see if we can make this diet completely balanced and nutritionally complete using only carnivore foods. All right, so my first meal of the day, I just grabbed this out of the freezer. This is 17 ounces of local beef from my local butcher shop. So I got this beef from my local butcher shop for $2.99 a pound. So my first meal of the day is going to come out to be just over $3. Now I am going to include some butter with that, so I'll add that into the final cost for the day. But this is a pretty cheap meal for breakfast. Now, normally when I would work out, I consume bone broth right after that. I'm not working out, so I'm not consuming bone broth. It's probably just going to be hamburger, and it's going to be some butter and salt. And that's probably going to be it. It's going to be very simple. Now, this ground beef that I normally buy is like 75-25. It's pretty fatty. But when I log this and when I track it in Chronometer, I'm going to enter it as 80-20 because I cook these burger patties pretty rare on the inside, but there is going to be some fat that renders off. So I want to make sure I account for that. So that's why I'm going to log it as 80-20. All right, so my burger patties are done. They turned out pretty good. Now I also have 2 tablespoons of butter. I might actually include a little bit more depending on how I feel after I eat this. I got some pink Himalayan salt. So first meal about to be down the hatch. Yeah, I'm like halfway done. And the butter's tasting pretty darn good to me. Again, gotta trust that intuition. So I'm adding in another 2 tablespoons of butter. It's a high-fat morning, apparently. All right, it's dinner time for Shawnee. I've got her food laid out here. As always, I'll flash some information up on the screen that will give you an idea on how I proportion and structure her meals. That's just a general guideline I follow. And I pretty much got down pat on what to feed her every single night. Her meals are pretty consistent. They usually contain a lot of the stuff that you see here. Sometimes I add in other things like organs. Sometimes I do fish. I do switch it up, and I like to keep variation in there. But generally, this is pretty much the bulk of her meal. Typically, she gets 1.5 to 2 pounds of food. This is like 29, I think maybe 30 ounces. I have a 6-ounce chicken back. I've got 4 ounces of chicken gizzards. I've got 1 ounce of beef tripe, which is essentially beef stomach. I have 3 ounces of chicken feet, aka 2 chicken feet. I've got 5 ounces of ground beef, and I have a pile of chicken leg quarters, which is about 10 ounces. I also have some bone broth on the stove back here that I'm heating up. And once I put all this in her bowl, I'm going to pour that over top to warm it up. And then I'll feed it to her raw exactly the way it is. Now, as for the cost of this, the chicken leg quarters, which is basically the back, and this quarter here that I deboned, cost me $1.79 a pound. The gizzards were $1.25 a pound. The tripe was $2.99 a pound. The chicken feet were $2.24 a pound. The ground beef was $2.99 a pound. So the total cost for this meal is $3.67. The cost per pound is $1.84. All right, so very, very cheap. I feed my dog on average much cheaper than what I was feeding her commercial kibble. So as for me, I'm keeping it super basic tonight. Those hamburgers I had this morning on the grill really hit the spot, and I'm craving them again, so that's what I'm going to have. All right, so for my very basic dinner tonight, I've got 18 ounces of ground chuck. It's the same beef as before, 75-25, cooking this on the grill. And I also found a little bit of beef fat hiding in the freezer. It's about 2 ounces, so I'm going to have this as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, second last meal of the day. Getting ready to go down. So 18 ounces of ground beef. Again, this was 75-25, but since I cooked it on the grill, I'll log it as 80-20. Obviously, some of the fat burn off. 2 ounces of beef fat trimmings. I just fried that up real quick in here. I've got 2 ounces of butter, and I've got a half of a block of Tillamook cream cheese. Trying to finish the dairy off and kind of go back to meat, salt, and water. So I'm almost through it. I think I've got about half a block left, and now I've got some more butter to get through, and then I should be there. And of course I have my pink salt, and I'm ready to grub out. I actually ended up consuming a little bit more butter than I thought I would. I added a little bit more in, and again, I just go with my gut, whatever feels good. I felt like I needed a little bit more fat, and if you've never had burger patties off the grill with butter on them, that's about the best you can get. All right, so one of the most important things, let's talk about cost. How much did day 3 cost me to eat 2 carnivore meals? So for breakfast, I had 17 ounces of ground beef. I get that for $2.99 a pound from a local butcher shop out of Bardstown, Kentucky. And 17 ounces cost me $3.18. For dinner, I had 18 ounces of the same ground beef. So that came out to $3.36. The beef fat I get for $3.29 from the same butcher shop. For the 2 ounces I had for dinner, that came out to be 41 cents. The butter I actually ended up consuming a little bit more than I thought I would. I added in another 4 tablespoons, I think, of butter. So I ended up getting a 4-pack of that for $5. So the total for all the butter I consumed was $1.25. And then the cream cheese was 75 cents. And the grand total for the entire day came out to be $8.96. And that's buying all my beef, pretty much all my beef and all my fat from a local butcher shop. And then, of course, the butter and the cream cheese came from the grocery store. I think I got that stuff at Kroger. But under 10 bucks is not bad for a full day of carnivore eating. So now I'm going to be very curious to see how this stands up nutritionally. So let's get into that. So I went super light on water today as well. And again, it's probably because I didn't train. And I only drank just one 32-ounce bottle of water. That's it. I just refilled this. And that's the only water I've had today. I don't overconsume water. So my activity level today, I didn't even log any kind of exercise or walking at all because I didn't do hardly anything as far as that goes. But my daily calorie consumption was 3,720 calories. And I was still over or in a calorie surplus of 809 calories. So still almost in a 1,000 calorie surplus. And again, I didn't really consume that much food, but it's very nutrient dense and I guess still quite a bit of fat in the grand scheme of things. And again, I'm 170 pounds and I'm 6'1". All right, so ironically enough, I just pulled this up. I haven't looked at this yet. So ironically enough, just like day 1 and day 2, I am at 70-30 for a fat to protein ratio. It is wild. I mean, it's wild. I'm literally pulling out food that sounds good and I'm just eating intuitively. I'm not planning anything out. And I am at 70-30, or have been the past 3 days, with no planning, which is completely wild. But like I said, the times I've tracked over the 5 years I've been carnivore, I've been pretty consistent 70-30, so I feel like that is very optimal for me. Protein, I had 257 grams of protein and 292 grams of fat. Again, 70-30 ratio. As per usual, fiber 0, which I might as well not even talk about fiber because it's going to be 0 no matter what because I'm not eating any plant food or anything with fiber. Vitamin C today was absolute 0, zilch, there's nothing. So again, I'm not concerned with that. If you've been following or studying carnivore, you'll know that in the absence of like sugar and carbohydrates and stuff, you don't really need that much vitamin C. And a lot of these food trackers don't really account for the vitamin C that is in meat because a lot of grass-fed meat and animal products actually do contain trace amounts of vitamin C. And in almost all cases, the amounts that those meats contain and those foods contain is enough to sustain you, which has been my case. I've never had a problem with vitamin C. I've never had to supplement with it. I've been totally fine in that aspect, and I've basically been eating just like I'm eating now, like I have been the past 3 days. Iron, 3 times my RDA. B12, I'm at 10 times my RDA. So maxed out on both those. Calcium, 29%. It's a lack of just calcium containing foods. I mean, if I wanted to bump that up, I could add in some eggshells, some eggshell powder. I did a video about that recently you can check out. I could add in more cheese, dairy products. I could add in, bone-in fish like sardines, canned fish, things like that. And bone broth, that's another good source of calcium. But I'm not too concerned with that because I am getting calcium in my diet, and I also didn't have bone broth today. Folate is low again at 18%. I'm kind of back on track with where I was on day 1 because I didn't have any organ meats today. And if I wanted to get more folate, I could just add in some eggs. I could add in liver again or some organ meats, and that would bump that right back up. Vitamin A, 90%. I'm totally happy with that. Potassium, 83%. I'm good with that as well. That's one that's usually maxed out, so I'm not really concerned with that one. All my B vitamins are maxed out except for B1, which has been pretty consistent so far. And that one's actually a little bit lower today at 38%. Not too concerned there because it's usually up around 80 and 90%, so I'm good with that. Vitamin D, very low at 7%. Now, vitamin D today, I didn't really get outside at all because it was raining and storming today. But I'm out in the sun every single day. I'm getting plenty of vitamin D. I'm not worried about not getting vitamin D one day. It's not going to hurt me at all. And if I did want nutritional sources of vitamin D, I could just add in fatty fish. I could add in fish oils, dairy, eggs, things like that. That would bump it up. But sun is always going to be the best when it comes to vitamin D. Vitamin E, that one was pretty low. I'm at 25% on that one. Not too concerned. If I wanted to bump that one up, again, seafood, fatty fish, trout, salmon, pork. Chicken has quite a bit of vitamin E. I could bump that up pretty easily. And as I go along with this, I'm going to start introducing those different foods and just see what kind of difference it makes. Vitamin K, that one has been fairly consistently low. That's at 20%. So also not too concerned with that one. I could bump that one up, I think, by adding in like cheese, liver, eggs, butter, poultry, things like that would probably make that go up. And like I said, as I go along, I'm going to try those things out and see if we can make a difference there. Copper, I'm at 90%. I'm good with that. I've been maxed out on that all week. Iron's at 3 times my RDA, maxed out there. Magnesium, if you've watched the previous 2 videos, I'm not concerned with that because obviously I do absorb magnesium through my skin, which is the best way to absorb it. So not getting dietary magnesium is not a bad thing. Now, manganese today was very low. I'm at 4% on that one. Based off the past couple days, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to bump that up until I add in oysters or seafood. So I'm going to say that's probably going to remain pretty consistently low until I add those things in. But once we get through the first couple weeks or the first week, I'll start experimenting with that stuff and see if we can make that move in the positive direction. Phosphorus is maxed out. I'm 2 times my RDA. Potassium, 83%. I'm okay with that. Selenium, sodium, good there. Zinc, I'm maxed out. Fat, my omega-3 is pretty low today, actually. It was at 52%, where I've been averaging over 100%, but it's still higher than omega-6. So I'm still on the positive side, and I still have a good omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. So that should still be pretty anti-inflammatory. I'm okay with that ratio there. Saturated fat's high. I'm good with that, of course. And going on down the list, cholesterol, that's going to be pretty high, which I'm okay with. I mean, cholesterol is very essential in the human body. And protein, going down the list here, everything looks pretty normal compared to the previous 2 days. Everything's maxed out. I've hit my RDA. Actually, I've well exceeded my RDA on every single one of those, all 3 days. So yeah, my proteins, essential amino acids, I'm good on. So for not having anything special today, I mean, no organ meats, no seafood, just basically ground beef, a little bit of fat, and some butter, and a slight bit of dairy in the form of cream cheese. This is still pretty well-rounded and balanced nutrition. I mean, I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm just going to keep eating intuitively. I'm going to keep showing you exactly what I eat, and I'm going to track it all, and we'll see where we land with that. Now, obviously, there's still some areas that could use some improvement, but I think that by adding in those foods I mentioned, which I will do, you know, maybe the next week or so, I really think I can bump that up, and I really think we can make this a very balanced, well-rounded way of eating using only carnivore foods based off what I'm seeing right now. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to like, subscribe, join the Apex tribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the future videos in this series. And I'll see you on day 4. All right, peace out.